Howdy y'all, my name's Brooke Cooley. I'm a professional horseshoer in Tomball, Texas, and today I'm going to show you a half set on this barrel racing horse with soft infected feet. Thanks for clicking and I hope you enjoy. So I'm going to start with a barefoot trim on this back foot. I always start by brushing it out so I can see the foot. Next I'm going to pare the sole with my knife to cut out any dead tissue and reveal the white line if possible. So I do try to avoid cutting out the bars if possible when trimming barefoot because they are an extension of the supporting structures of the hoof wall. So next I'm going to do my nipper run. I always hold the head of the nippers parallel with the sole of the foot and trim to where the white line meets the sole. This way I can trim out more infected white line now that the hoof wall is out of the way. You can see where the white line is infected. It's all black around the edges. So I'm brushing it off here and I'm trimming out more of that infected tissue around the white line. So here I'm leveling off the foot, which is probably one of the most important parts of trimming. And then I'm also rounding out the edges. Here I'm trimming the frog down. This horse did have a shoe on this foot before I trimmed it, which means the frog was very proud, so I had to trim a good bit of that off. But I'm leaving his back foot barefoot, so I'm having to take that frog down level with the rest of the foot. If it's too proud, he'll end up standing on it too much and that'll hurt. So now I'm doing the top dress. I'm holding the rasp parallel with the proper angle of the foot and I'm rasping off any flared out or deformed sections. And he didn't really have a lot to take off of that one. Here I'm taking off the old shoe on this front foot by cutting the clinches or rasping them down if they're too close to the wall. So here I'm pulling the shoe off, and this isn't rocket science, you just want to be gentle, but you do have to break those clinches all the way or it will pull the hoof wall out when you pull the shoe off. Especially with him having soft feet in this video. Just like with the last trim, I'm going to start by brushing it out, and do remember that trimming a foot that you're about to shoe is different than trimming a foot that's going to be barefoot. And so here I'm paring the sole. And you don't have to worry about leaving the bars on a foot that you're putting a shoe on because the bars won't be in contact with the ground anyway. However, I do recommend that you don't trim them out every time or all the way because you could possibly underrun the bars with over trimming. So now I'm going to do the nipper run. And when you're doing a nipper run on a foot that you're going to put a shoe on, you have to be very careful about making sure the entire trim is even and parallel. On a barefoot horse, if you do a bit of an uneven trim, it's not that big of a deal. You can usually rasp it around and fix it. But when you're doing a shoe, you're not going to bevel the edge and you can't really cut any corners there. So here I'm trimming up the frog a little bit to help expose those commissures better. The commissures act as gutters of the hoof, pushing mud out the back. When you put shoes on, that can further suffocate the commissures, so you want to make sure your frog's really open. So here I'm leveling off the foot and I do have to trim around that frog. When you're putting a shoe on during your trim, you do want to leave the frog as tall as possible because the shoe adds height to the hoof wall. And you want the frog to load the ground still. So when you're doing shoes, I'd like to emphasize how important the levelness is. One way that farriers get feet really level when shoeing is by flattening out the shoe on the anvil, heating up and burning the shoe onto the foot, and that does work. It's kind of a shortcut and a cheat. But it makes your job easier, then go ahead and do it. I do it, but I'm not doing it on this particular horse because the hot shoeing tends to spook him quite a bit. He probably needs it because the hot shoeing does kill infection, and so I'll probably try to do hot shoeing on him in the future. But another thing, I am putting aluminum shoes on him because with his feet being soft, the steel shoes would be too heavy and they'd probably tear through his hoof wall. And aluminum shoes you cannot burn on, they just melt in the forge. So here I'm spending lots of time making sure his foot is super level, again because I won't be burning on. And I'm also checking shape with the shoe. You also want to make sure to trim out any sole that's going to be pressing against the shoe. You don't want to leave any sole pressure when you put that shoe on because that'll make your horse sore. So I specifically remember having a really difficult time leveling off this foot. I think what happened was while I was rasping downwards towards the toe, because the foot was softer at the toe, my rasp took more material off the toe than the rest of the foot. I actually ended up having to go in there at some point with a hoof knife and trim out the heel and quarter to meet the toe. Also, when you rasp one area for a lot, it gets really smooth, and then the teeth of the rasp don't grab it as easy. And so going in there with a hoof knife and trimming it manually tends to work better when you're having that issue. So here I'm going in for the top dress on this front foot, and there's really not much different about top dressing a foot that you shoe other than the fact that you don't want to round out those edges too much. I do like to go in and bevel while top dressing on a barefoot horse, but on a horse I'll shoe, I'll basically run my rasp around the edge just to kind of take that sharp bit off, but I won't bevel the hoof wall at all. So at one point I did shape the shoe off camera, and now I'm just coming in here to prep the foot and nail the shoe on. So because this horse's foot is softer, I'm trying to strategically place these nails in there to grab onto the strongest part of the feet. So I'd like to point out that I am shoeing this horse without any chaps on. That's really dangerous. I don't recommend doing it. I have a way of shoeing that prevents me from getting hurt while nailing these on. Also, don't hold your hand behind the nail while you're driving the nail in, like I'm doing in this video. That's a bad idea. But I'm an idiot full of bad ideas, so do what I say, not what I do. So here I'm just trimming off the excess nail that's sticking up over the top of the foot. So I did like the placement of the nails, and here I'm driving 2 more nails. I'm not doing 8 because I don't want to punch more holes in his foot and obstruct the integrity of this hoof wall. So I'd also like to mention that I did choose aluminum shoes today because his feet are really soft and he'd be more likely to pull a steel shoe than an aluminum shoe. I have been putting steel rim shoes on him because he's a rail racing horse, but today I chose to do aluminum, and that's why I filmed this video. So here I'm boxing the nails. You want to make sure to do this well when you're doing a horse with soft feet because you don't want to risk having that nail drag down through the hoof wall when you go to clinch it over. So before you clinch, always run a rasp under your nails to remove any extra hoof wall. If you don't, dead hoof wall will curl up under the nail as you clench. The nail won't actually be clenched to the hoof wall. It'll be clenched to excess material on the outside of the hoof wall, which will eventually fall out, and then you'll have a loosely clenched shoe. So I'm going to start clenching. I always kind of clench halfway initially to see how far the nails drag, and then I'll go through and clip them all with my nail cutters, and then I'll sometimes rasp under them again if I think I need to, and then finish off with a full clench. Also, rasp over your clenches lightly to remove burrs, sharp edges, and to kind of smooth over those nails a little bit. Thanks so much for watching. Please share this video and follow me on Facebook. Leave a comment if you have any questions or any advice you'd like to share with me. The rest of this video is just me petting a cat, so sit around if you want to see that.